This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very excited to be speaking with George Nolfi about elevation. How are you, George?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good, good. It's nice to see you reteam with Anthony Mackie after The Banker. But I would say this is a slightly different vibe for this film. What was it like reuniting with him?
Always great working with Anthony. We've worked together three times. We'll work together at least three more, probably 10 more at the rate we're going. Um, and I like, and Anthony also likes doing movies that are, if you can, you do one genre, then you try another. So obviously The Bankers, a, I guess it's sort of a drama, although a drama told through like a heist movie. This could not be farther from that. And so yeah, it's great. New challenges, new locations, new places to go have drinks after the day of shooting.
Well, it feels to me a lot more like your film, The Adjustment Bureau, although there you have, you know, villains that can communicate in a different way, whereas having, just sort of monsters makes it a little bit different because they're scarier in one way because you can't really talk to them, but
Right.
also that means you can't reason with them, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the Adjustment Bureau has some running in it. This has like three massive full-blown action scenes. So that was, by the way, another thing that really attracted me to it. It's like, okay, I've done action, I've done fights, but this is like action scenes, ones that take you, 7 or 8 or 9 days to, get all the pieces of.
Can you tell me more about what's involved with that?
Was shooting them. Well, take the ski lift. You've seen the movie, I take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they take the ski lift scene. There is nobody that I've seen, no film I've seen that has a true action scene on a ski lift. There's people skiing underneath ski lifts or shooting each other around them or getting stuck on them. But there's a reason for that. They're tricky. It's a really tricky environment, right? Very steep environment. There's the mechanics of the ski lift have to work. They have to stay safe for, down the road when people are using them. Stunts on them involve, height and so forth. So it's really hard to just even get anybody to entertain the idea of doing it. And then you have to say, how can I shoot that in a way that keeps you present, but is still, safe and so forth. Um, and then add to that, you're at 11,500 feet. So the actors are running their hearts out, where it's, literally they've got half the oxygen than they do at sea level, right? In the air. So, um, and we shot in October, and at 11,000 feet in October in Colorado, it can snow at any minute. So it's like a high wire act, you know. Um, you gotta, you only have a few minutes of daylight per day where it's right. So it it was tricky. And then the mine, whole different set of problems. How do you get the equipment in? Because it's, rock of solid wall. That's a real place. That's a functional mine for educational and other purposes. Um, and we were a mile into it and a mile under rock, right? So you got to bring all that equipment in, you got to get power in, you've got to communicate. Normally you're communicating over walkie-talkies, and then you got to say to your actors, "Hey, I'm going to turn all the lights off because there's no power in this world. And we're going to have, some really minimal ambience, and then you got to run full out, in this narrow rocky tunnel because you're being chased by a monster." You can imagine the challenges of that. But it helps for if your actor's claustrophobic, for example, that's a good thing because they just can just take that into the scene. Um, so
And I assume there's a lot of visual effects involved. How does that change your role with some of these scenes?
there's fewer visual effects than you'd imagine. Obviously, the monster is visual effects. Some of the things like on the ski lift when the chair, drops and so forth. Like you have to shoot that on stage for safety reasons and light control reasons. But even that, like I dropped them. Morena, if you get Morena on camera, she'll have some choice words to say about that moment. I was like, it's going to be a bit of a drop, and then we just cut the wire, and that's a genuine reaction. So
Could be why her character is so angry throughout the entire film, right?
yes,
Maybe that wasn't really acting; that was just her mood that she was in.
yeah.
Well, I imagine that all the conversation scenes therefore have a very different vibe because it's a lot calmer and you're not, just so intense with it. Do you try to, obviously, you have to depend on the elements and other things, timing of the day for those, but you try to alternate when you're filming, or you just sort of do action all at once and then sort of straightforward conversation, etc., together?
Oh, well, the way that a film is constructed, the way you lay it out to actually shoot it is really just done so that it's the least expensive. And so, anything that is going to be shot in a stage is grouped together. Anything that's going to be shot in a particular location on a mountainside is grouped together. And if one of them is, 4 years before and the character has a buzz cut and the other, whatever, like you just have to deal with it because you're not going to drive to that location and then go to the stage and then drive back to that location. So there is a lot of efficiency in terms of the financials of doing it that way, but it makes it very inefficient in terms of the story. So one of the things the director does, I mean, this is very rudimentary, but is just kind of remind everybody, here's where we are. Okay, the last moment in the movie was this scene that we, shot 2 weeks ago, or we haven't had this moment yet. So this happened. Keep that in mind when we go.
Would you say you looked at any particular films or books or shows or anything for post-apocalyptic or action influences?
So I tend to work from actual physical locations more than other movies. I've always been like that. I mean, I
Yeah.
love other movies, but I feel like there's too much this derivative in the culture anyway. It's so hard to get anything made, and it's so much is about brands or how can you sell it, right? So to the extent that I can as a director step away from that and not be like, oh, I'm trying to reference this movie or that movie, and more be like, okay, here's the premise. You're safe above 8,000 feet, you're dead below 8,000 feet. What's it like to live above 8,000 feet? Well, let me find a community that is above 8,000 feet that, doesn't have a lot of cars, that has clapboard sort of houses and so forth. And let me build the reality around that. What's it like when you're in a mine and all the lights are out? What does it smell like? What does it feel like under your feet? Oh, do you have to worry? You have to worry about head injuries, you know, like I didn't even think about that. It's like, well, the ceilings are going to be tall, right? It's like, no, sometimes you have to be ducking down. So then you go, oh, well, they would know that they're from this world, this environment, right? So when they are going to go through there, they take the helmets and put them on we have a scene where they take the helmets and they put them on. Well, you can't shoot that scene without them in helmets because you could knock somebody out and hurt them badly. But also the characters in that world would know we got to have helmets on or we could get knocked out and then the monster's going to eat us. So, uh, yeah, that's how I start. Find real places that fit the story and then talk to people who live there, find out what it's like to work in a mine, and build from there.
Can you preview anything about your next projects? Any genre ideas?
I there are three things that are about to come out, but I am not allowed to talk about. But I would say I'm there are things I'm humbled to work on and people I'm humbled to be working with. In the next 2 weeks to a month before Christmas, all that should be out there. But for now,
And Anthony involved in some of them?
Anthony is not involved in the ones I'm talking about, but we were already talking downstairs about what our next one's going to be. So
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing that. Thank you so much, George.
thank you. Take care, Abe.